Well, welcome along, guys. Let's talk mentality and let's talk January. That almost rhymes, doesn't it? I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Welcome along to Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm your host, Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day. And as I always tell you, it's free, so why not subscribe, guys? You get a daily Rangers update. You get breaking news. You get press conference analysis, live streams, podcasts, guests, all for the grand price of absolutely nothing. Unless, obviously, you want to join the channel to support it, then it's 99p. But the content is not behind a paywall for you, so it's free. Anyway, we're going to talk January transfer window. We're going to talk mentality. We're going to talk Roofe. We're going to talk goal scorers. We're going to talk AFCON as well. So let's start off by talking about the AFCON, and then we'll go on to a little bit of talk about January transfer window and where Rangers are up to with that. And we're going to obviously talk about mentality. We're going to talk about goal scorers, and we're going to talk Roofe. So let's talk a little bit, obviously, about AFCON now. The African nations that have qualified for AFCON, which is their version of the Euros, have released what are called provisional squads, 40-man provisional squads that will be then whittled down to 23, very much in the same way that European national teams do. You know, the same way that obviously Steve Clarke will do this in summer 2024, the same way that Gareth Southgate will do in summer 2024. Now, 2 Rangers players have been named in their country's prospective what are they called again? Provisional squads. That's the ones, provisional squads. And they are Cyril Dessers for Nigeria and Abdallah Sima for Senegal. Now, the African Cup of Nations takes place during January and February, so during the season, which is not entirely ideal. I think something to do with the fact that come July, August time, playing in Africa is pretty much nigh on impossible. Although, then again, they did play in South Africa, if I remember rightly, in a World Cup. So, I don't know. Anyway, so, look, I'll be honest with you. Having a big sort of continental tournament in the middle of European seasons is not great, and it's certainly not what we would want. Now, if we were to lose Cyril Dessers and Abdallah Sima, and you know what? Who'd have thought a few months ago we would be talking like this about Cyril Dessers? But if we were to lose these 2 players, we would lose them for the whole of January and some of February. Now, given the fact that at this moment in time, Cyril Dessers is our only fit striker, with Danilo being out till April, Roofe being out till God knows when, Sam Lammer's not been able to hit a cow's arse with a banjo, and Zach Lovelace not been back till mid-January at the earliest, it would leave Rangers in a very difficult position if they didn't sign someone early in the January transfer window. More of that to come. So, look, let's deal with a little bit of realism first of all. We'll talk about Abda in a minute. You know, one of my favourite players, and they always say never fall in love with a lone player. Am I doing that? A little bit. Cyril Dessers, look, I think it is highly doubtful that he will make the Nigeria squad. You know, you look at the calibre of nothing against Cyril Dessers. You know, the lad's trying hard. He's scoring goals. Is he the complete article? No, of course he's not. Is he an amazing player? No, of course he's not. But you know, if you look at the players who are ahead of him, you know, players like Kaliacho Iheanacho of Leicester, Osimhen of Napoli, Boniface, there are a large number of strikers who are way, way ahead of Cyril Dessers with a much better track record than Cyril Dessers, certainly at national level and at club level. So I would think it would be very highly doubtful that Cyril Dessers would make the Nigeria squad. Abda, you know what? There's a chance that he could make the Senegal squad. You know, given the way he's playing, given his current form, given the the talent that he's got, there is a chance that he could make the Senegal squad, which obviously has a huge downside because, as we know, Senegal are one of the fancy teams. They are a very good side. They have some great players. And I fancy to do well, get out of the group stage and go deep in the tournament. This could obviously mean us being without Abda until at least February. Now, this is far from ideal, especially when you consider that, Abda is joint top scorer in the SPFL with, yes, that's right, with James Tavernier and Matt Riley of that lot from across the city. So more of that to come, guys, more of that to come. But, Abda has been a fantastic player for us this season, 14 goals. But it's not just his goals, it's his work rate, his work ethic. And it certainly would be a worry if we were to lose Abda for that length of time. Rabbi Matondo, certainly at the start of the season looked very good indeed in that role that Abdallah Sima is now fulfilling. But Matondo has, I think, struggled to get back onto the pace of the game since coming back from injury. So that would be a huge concern. So you've got to kind of hope look, and I know this is an awful thing to say for Abdallah Sima. You know, I wish him all the best. Of course I do. I wish him every success in the game. But I hope that he doesn't make the Senegal squad. I really do. And if he does make the Senegal squad, I hope Senegal crack the group stages. I know that's a horrible thing to say. But look, for the good of Rangers, we do need Abdallah Sima. We do need him available to play for us. You know, he has become an increasingly important part of this squad and one of our truly top-class players. And, you know, like we've said, he is one of those players that when he's through on goal and when he's one-on-one with a keeper, you really do fancy him to actually score a goal, don't you? So it would be a massive loss. But not just that, the work rate that he provides, his ability down the left, his ability to go outside, to come inside, his speed. He is just an absolute quality player. So to lose him, you know, especially considering he's on loan, would be very, very bad indeed. So, you know, realistically, Abda, I think, has a 50-50 chance of making the squad. Civil Desses, I think has about a 20%, 10% chance of making the squad. I don't think he will make the Nigeria squad at all. So I think that obviously that concern passes. But that, of course, links us nicely into the January transfer window. God, some people would think I actually planned this. So the January transfer window. Look, the January transfer window is, as I've said on past videos, a notoriously horrible time to try and sign players. Why? Because, look, you don't want to go for players who are out of contract in the summer because you don't want to be paying money for them because you can get them for nothing in the summer. By the same token, you know, you've got a situation where it's a seller's market. You know, clubs know that you are desperate for a striker, desperate for a winger, desperate for a left back, a centre midfielder, that you may be fighting against relegation, trying to win a title, trying to get into the Champions League places, trying to get into the Europa League places. You know, there's all those considerations. And if they know that you need something, they will automatically up the price. The other thing as well is if you're shopping domestically, like ourselves and that lot from across the city, the teams in and around us will naturally add the old firm tax. They'll increase the price of that player because of the fact that he's one of the old firm asking for the player. Shankland, Miovski, etc., etc. So, look, that's the position we're in. Now, realistically, where are we with January? You know, Philippe Clement was questioned today in the press conference about January, and to me, he gave two very different answers. Now, he was asked, first of all, about the striker situation. And he was asked does the position we're now in with Cyril Dessers as our only fit striker really increase the need for a striker in January? To which his answer was quite surprising. Now, if we remember back, he did say in a press conference that a striker was a priority and they would be looking at strikers in January. He now seems to have rode back from that a little bit. Now, is that because he's been told that, look, if we don't want to be ripped off, if we don't want to be fleeced by somebody, then we've got to obviously not push it too far, although teams will see that we do have a need there. He answered along the lines of, you know, it's something we will review, something we'll have conversations close to the time. It's something we'll have ongoing conversations about. And a lot of it depends on the fitness of Kemar Roofe, which to me was a surprising answer given what he has said previously. But like I said, it may be a case of Philippe very cleverly trying to play down the need for a striker so as to try and, I don't know, stop teams from overinflating prices for players. Now, realistically, you know, given the fact that Kemar went off yet again on Wednesday night with yet another injury, which clearly, you know, Kemar was extremely frustrated, and we will talk about him near the end of the video, and obviously update on his condition. But, you know, realistic, we cannot depend on him. You really, really cannot be thinking that he is genuinely an option into the end of the season, because even if he comes back from injury within a couple of weeks, there's a good chance that within another couple of weeks, he could be injured again and out for 3 or 4 weeks. And then he comes back from that and he's going to be injured again, because there is really something not quite right with Kemar Roofe. You know, something that Philippe Clement even commented on in his press conference there. We talked about the fact that they would be examining and searching deeply to try and find long-term solutions for Kemar. The other answer then he then gave was, he talked about the fact that, you know, that once something was confirmed, once something was definite, the press would be the first to know. That, you know, he knows that with all January transfer window transfers, it can go right down to the wire. Easily clubs can nip in and steal players. That's just how things are. You know, he talked about the fact that he would be working closely with, it was not just his decision, that he'd be working closely with Neil Coppen and the rest of the football board to identify targets and bring those guys in, so that it very much looks like this is a team effort, that we're not going to have a situation like we had in the summer where one man seems to be dictating the transfer policy of the club. It does seem that Niels Koppen, obviously, who'll be the new director of football recruitment, will have a role to play once he joins the club in January. Philippe Clement, obviously, as the manager, will have a role to play. But as well as that, you can add in there the likes of Craig Robertson, James Bisgrove, and whoever eventually replaces John Park, if he is replaced. So it is going to be a collective decision. Now, from what he was saying there, it did seem like there were plans afoot. There were things being discussed, and that players would be brought in, that the board were very much on board with actually bringing players in, which seemed to slightly contrast with the earlier answer that he gave. Now, thinking about the January transfer window, thinking about Philippe Clement and his team, I think there are targets out there. I think there are players that Philippe Clement is genuinely interested in. I think there are players that we could realistically go for. Now, for me, I think we need 2 strikers in. I think the best policy with these 2 strikers, there would be to sign one on a permanent basis. And given the fact that we do have Danilo, Dessers, Lammers at this moment in time, sign another one on loan, then to be a loan to buy option. So that if at the end of the season he is surplus to requirements, we don't have to buy. He's not stuck on the books. We're not stuck with an absolute surfeit of strikers getting paid a lot of money. And we can obviously then readjust. If he does play well, we can then ship out one of those players like Roofe, who's out of contract at the end of the season, like Sam Lammers, who's just useless, and perhaps buy that player who is on that loan to buy policy. So look, I think that would be the best way going forward. Now, as I mentioned on yesterday's video, Fabio Silva of Wolves has certainly been mentioned, but I think that is a lot of paper talk, and I think it's also agents trying to whip up a little bit of interest in him. Certainly when you hear him being mentioned, linked with Celtic and Rangers and other clubs that he's been linked with, it does seem a lot like agents trying to whip up interest in their candidate. So, I think he's very much out of Rangers' price barrier at this moment in time. He's a £35 million player. He's probably on massive wages as well. Even a loan move, I think, would be slightly unrealistic, given the fact that that we would have to take some part of those wages. I don't think Wolves, given their financial situation, would be willing to pay all of his wages whilst he is not at the club. So I don't really think there's a lot of legs in that one. Bojan Miovski, it seems, is very much a Celtic target for the summer, and someone that I think Aberdeen will be far more willing to do business with them across the city than they would be with us. We all know how they feel about us, and we all know how they lie down and die every time they play Celtic, and they know how they worship Celtic. So look, I think it's more likely he goes there. Plus, I think realistically, Aberdeen would not do business with us. And if they were going to do business with us, the price would be massively overinflated for a player because it is us asking. Shankland continues to be an option, although it does look like the Hearts are determined to try and keep hold of him, especially as they would gain more money from getting into Europe, finishing third, having Shankland score the goals to get them that third place than they would from selling him to Rangers. Talk of obviously that being part of a Lowry swap, but it does seem that the club, Rangers, are not interested in actually allowing Lowry to leave on a permanent basis. That's what I'm hearing. So that one is still very much up in the air. Like I said on the podcast with Laura last night, I would be in favour of Lawrence Shankland. The guy's a goal scorer. He's got a good track record. But if the price is too high, if it is ridiculously high, if it is astronomical, then it is certainly not someone I would want to see us go for. I'm hoping that, given the fact that we are bringing Niels Koppen, who has a good track record of identifying targets, of bringing in targets, that would give us options to look across Europe to other leagues and perhaps go out there and get a bargain or two. You look at the fact that Niels Koppen brought Noah Lang, who is an absolute superstar at PSV, for a very cheap fee into PSV. And he obviously is a player that I think in a couple of years' time will be sold for a massive, massive profit, very much fitting that trading model that Rangers want to operate. So, Koppen has a track record there. He has a good track record. There are players I think, we can look at, beyond Shankland, beyond Miovski, as RRM, who's one of our regular channel contributors on our comment section, says Mikel Biereth, who, is currently on loan at Motherwell, has a very good track record. Look, I'm not saying the club are interested in him. I don't know if the club are interested in Mikel Biereth. I really genuinely don't. The guy's played 11 games in the Premiership this year for Motherwell. So he's someone we're going to face on Sunday. 6 goals, 2 assists. That's 8 goal contributions in 11 games, which is absolutely excellent. I mean, that is a really exceptional return. Biereth is a very good player. He is Danish by citizenship, although he was born in London. I mean, especially when you consider those 8 goal contributions have come off the back of playing in only 44% of Motherwell's starting 11s and only playing 47% of their minutes. He is an out-and-out centre forward. He's over 6 foot. He's big. He's quick. He's physical. At the moment, his market value, according to Transfer Market, is around 650,000. He's currently on loan at Motherwell from Arsenal. Arsenal's under 21s. He is 20 years old now. Look, you could realistically, ask Arsenal to transfer the loan to Rangers. You could, by the same token, possibly if that 650,000 to £1 million is a realistic fee for him, Arsenal could be willing to let him go. Especially given the fact that Arsenal have, strikers like Eddie Nketiah, who's a very young player coming through, Gabriel Jesus, another very young player as well. They seem to have priorities beyond, say, Mika Biereth. So it could be that they will be tempted to sell and gain some money for him, especially given that Arsenal are on the tipping point when it comes to FFP. So, but like I said, I don't know whether the club are interested in him. I don't know if he's someone that Rangers have actually identified. We're only kind of picking names out of a hat. Now, one thing that is 100% certain is as we approach January, the fact that we do have a need, I think, for a central midfielder. We do have a need for a winger. We do have a need for a centre forward. A whole host of names are going to be linked with the club. It's who we are because we're Rangers. Names get linked because they know we need players in those positions. Names will get linked from all across Europe. It will be, I think as I did, I think as we've said previously, every man, his dog, his cat, the cat's goldfish and the goldfish's hamster will be all linked with Rangers and a move to the club. It's about sifting through that crap and looking at what is an actual genuine link and what is purely agents trying to whip up interest in their players, and also just media trying to get some clickbait because it's Rangers and they know that fans will click on content and watch anything to do with the club, given the fact that we are one of the biggest clubs in world football. So look, can I give you any answers on who we're interested in? Look, I realistically cannot. Everything at this moment in time is pure speculation. Until we see, as you all say, until you actually see that man stood there at the training ground in a Rangers top with the scarf above his head, you cannot say that he is legitimately going to be a target, apart from the fact you see him walking into Ibrox or walking into Auchenhowie to talk with Billy Clement, James Bisgrove, Niels Coppen and the rest of the football board. That is the situation we're in. Now, there are names. There are lots of names. And I could sit here and probably pick names out of thin air. There are players that have been linked with us previously. I think obviously you've got to take into account with that, how religiously are Rangers going to stick to the trading model? If they stick blindly to the trading model, I think it's a mistake. But then that would rule out players of a certain age because once they get to 28, 29, they have no resale value. Realistically, when the player's hitting 30, 31, he doesn't have a lot of resale value unless he's a goalkeeper. So that's where we're up to. And I think January is going to be an absolute crucial time. And it's almost, I think, in terms of the league race, whoever wins January kind of, I think, would go on to win the league. And I think if we can have a good January, address those positions of need, which, like I said, for me, a winger, central midfield, given the number of injuries we've got, and centre forward, at least 2 of them, then I think that we will have a big upper hand on Celtic if we recruit well. And I've got no doubt in my mind we can recruit well with the wisdom of Philippe Clement. Combine that with Niels Coppen, I think we have the men in place now to actually go and identify talent and really bring top quality talent to the football club. So that's where realistically where we're up to at this moment in time as regards the January transfer window. Like I said, I'm saying a big no to Fabio Silva. Don't rate the guy at all. Now, one remarkable statistic that was published today, that was put out there today, is this. You know what? It's utterly incredible. We talk, don't we, about Bojan Biovski and Lauren Shanklin has been targets for Rangers. 8 goals in 16 for Miovski, that's 1-2. 8 goals in 17 for Shanklin, just under 1 in 2. Goals per 90, 0.47 for Shanklin, 0.53 for Miovski. Goal every 169 minutes for Miovski, which is obviously a lot better than Shanklin's a goal every 191 minutes. Shanklin's also had more shots than Miovski. But you go up the table and ignoring him from across the city, you look at the top of the scorers charts and who sat there. Obviously, Abdallah Sima, who's been phenomenal this season and who is an out-and-out wide player, is an attacker. Personally, people have talked about him playing through the middle. I think you probably take away from that left side if you put Abda through the middle. And, his work rate from the left, his ability to go past players inside and outside, I think would be lost by putting him in the middle. You know, that record that he's got, you look at that, it's 0.7 goals per 90, you know, way ahead of any competition. A goal every 129 minutes, again, way ahead of his competition. 40 minutes, nearly 40 minutes clear of Matt Riley, 40 minutes clear of James Tavernier and Bojan Miovski. He's had 48 shots this season. You know, granted, he has had the most shots this season, but, you know, he has an excellent record there. But it's still absolutely remarkable, isn't it, that our captain, that James Tavernier, who is a right back, I think that's where we've got to kind of put this into perspective. You know, O'Reilly is an attacking midfield player. Miovski is a striker. Shankland's a striker. Seems what would, I suppose, you would call in the old days a wing forward. James Tavernier is a right back. And look, I know he takes penalties and free kicks, but that doesn't matter. You've still got to score them. The guy scored 9 goals in 17 games. He's got scores 0.53 goals per 90 minutes, which is better than Lawrence Shankland and actually the same as Bojan Miovski. He has the same goals per minute as Bojan Miovski. He has a better minutes per goal than Lawrence Shankland as well, and he's had less shots. Now, that is remarkable. That really is remarkable. Play Tav up front? I don't think it'd happen. I think it would take away from what he does elsewhere in terms of assists. And obviously, we know he has an excellent assist record. But look, I think it is kind of a realization, isn't it, that what Tav actually contributes to this team. You know, the fact that he will step up when he needs to, that he will dig us out of the crap when we're in it. Full respect to Tav for that statistic. I mean, those statistics are quite remarkable, aren't they? I mean, like I said, minutes per goal, the same as Miovski, better than Shankland. You know, goals per 90 minutes, again, better than Shankland, same as Miovski. Less shots than anyone who's up there. It's just incredible. It really is incredible for a right back. Really, really, truly is. Now, just to finish off today, we're going to talk a little bit about Kemar Roofe. Now, Kemar Roofe is, I think, going to be a long-term absentee. You know, as Philippe Clement did talk about Kemar and the fact that he doesn't know at this moment in time the extent of Kemar's injury, that he talked very much about the fact that, you know, Kemar is going to be out. He does need a scan, and once the scanners come in, they can then determine it. But this is all part of a wider problem with Kemar Roofe, a real issue with Kemar Roofe and his fitness. And I genuinely think that this is the end of the road for him. You know, I know what Philippe Clement's saying. He's going to come out and say that. He's not going to come out and say any different. He's going to support his players. That's what Philippe Clement does. But realistically, for Kemar, I think this is the end of the road. Guys, one last thing, actually, whilst I remember. Today, what I agree 110% with Philippe Clement on was his talk about mentality. Okay, so he talked about mentality in his press conference. And look, it's something that, as I mentioned on the earlier video, it's something this team have been very highly criticized for. You know, the fact that they are, as a team, that they have been labeled serial losers, serial bottle jobs, etc., etc. And at times, you know, they have really collapsed when we need them to actually come out and play, that they don't respond and they don't do what we need them to do when the going gets tough. But it does seem that under Philippe Clement, there has been a real change in that mentality. And that is great to see. You know, Thursday night, I think, started to show that when we went to Seville. Who'd have backed us to go to Seville and actually win that game? You know, you'd have to be an absolute, you know, diehard with your Rangers goggles on, your Rangers heart on, everything on to think that was going to happen. And the fact that we were pegged back, but we still fought back and we still kept going and we didn't collapse. And we just kept on going. And even when the Betis got on top, we didn't collapse. We fought back and we got the win. The same on Sunday. Again, cup final, Aberdeen, who this season have had a bit of a whip hand over us. We fought, we battled, we didn't play great, but we still won the game. St Johnstone, tough game Wednesday night. Again, not a brilliant performance, a tired performance, but still a victory. The mentality is clearly changing. Now, Philippe Clement said of this mentality, he said, it's crucial. It's all about mentality. If their mentality drops, all the rest drops. So it's crucial. And to win this marathon, you need to be consistent. There will be one moment that we are going to lose points. I am realistic. I am not naive. But we need to push every time to get these 3 points, and also in a way we want to do it. It's a big period, still 4 games and a lot of points to win. The winter break is then coming and the winter camp is coming, which is going to be really interesting for me to train more with the team and to speak more with the team. But that first part of that quote from Philippe Clement, when he talks about that mentality being crucial. And if that drops, everything else drops. The standard of play, the results, everything is absolutely spot on. And how good is it to hear a Rangers manager talking like that about mentality being key? And I think that is something he's clearly got across to these players. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching the video this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, whenever you've chosen to pick it up. As always, please smash that sub and ring the notification bell so you never miss out when we go live, when we release a video, or we're doing a game stream. Come and join us for those. And on the way out, there's two things I always need from you. Number one, smash the like. And number two, never forget, always remember, we are the people.